Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a huge idea, the science of complexity. And trust me, it's a game changer. It totally flips the script on how we look at, well, just about everything, from nature to the economy to our own societies. All right, so to really get a grip on complexity, we first have to understand the world it replaced. Let's call this first part a clockwork universe, because for a long time, that's exactly how we thought everything worked. You see, for centuries, one really powerful idea ruled science. The universe, it was basically seen as this giant, perfectly predictable machine. Think of it like a clock. If you could just figure out how all the little gears and springs fit together, you could predict exactly what it would do. Everything was neat, tidy, and made sense. Simple, right? And the main tool for this was something called reductionism. The logic was, well, it was pretty straightforward. If you want to understand how a car works, you take the engine apart, piece by piece. You want to understand a human body, you study the individual organs. The core belief was, if you understand all the parts, you automatically understand the whole thing. And let's be clear, this way of thinking was phenomenally successful. I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say it built the modern world. We're talking about the Industrial Revolution, all of modern medicine, pretty much every engineering marvel you can think of. It was an unbelievably powerful framework. But then things started to get a little messy. Which brings us to our next section, order from chaos. This is where the old clockwork model starts to break down. So around the middle of the 20th century, scientists started hitting a wall. They kept finding these systems that just refused to play by the old simple rules. You know, things like the weather, the stock market, even a living forest. They just weren't predictable in that clockwork way. And this led to a really profound question, one that shook the very foundations of science. What if the whole isn't just more than the sum of its parts? What if it's something completely different? And that question leads us straight to one of the most beautiful ideas in all of science, emergence. Just take a look at this plant. You could analyze every single molecule in the seed, every atom in the soil, but you'd never find the thing that makes it alive. That life, that plantness, isn't in any of the parts. It emerges from the ridiculously complex dance of interactions between all those simple parts. Now here's where it gets really mind-bending. The philosopher Edgar Morin flipped the script. He said, wait a minute, the whole is also less than the sum of its parts. What does that even mean? Well, think about it. When a bunch of individual cells get together to form, say, a heart, they have to give up their freedom. They can't just go off and do whatever they want anymore. They're constrained by the organization they're a part of. So in a weird way, the whole is also less than all the possibilities of its individual components. So, if there's no master plan, where does all this incredible order come from? The answer is self-organization. It's this almost magical ability of a system to create its own structure without any central command. You've seen this. Think about a flock of starlings swirling in the sky, or a school of fish moving as one. There's no general, no CEO bird telling everyone what to do. It all just happens. This breathtakingly complex pattern emerges from each individual, just following a few simple local rules. Okay, so this is a really crucial point. As this new science of complexity started to grow, it actually split. It hit a fork in the road, leading to two very different ways of thinking about it. Yeah, so it turns out not all complexity is created equal. On one path, we have what's called restricted complexity. This is the one you might be more familiar with. It's all about using supercomputers to build these intricate models, trying to predict and manage systems from the outside. But the other path, that's general complexity, and it's a whole different beast. It's less of a tool and more of a total reform of thought. It makes us step back and ask really deep questions about our own role in observing the world and what it even means to know something. And that second path is what leads us to our next big idea. The world isn't a model. This is where we have to get really honest about the limits of what we can know. This is where things get really philosophical, but stick with me. Richard Rorty put it perfectly. The world is out there, right? It just is. But our descriptions of the world, our maps, our scientific theories, our computer models, those aren't out there. We make them. They're human inventions. And it's a critical mistake to confuse the map with the territory. And this creates some massive problems for anyone trying to build a perfect model. First off, complex systems are incompressible. That's a fancy way of saying the only perfect model of the system is the system itself. Any map you draw is, by definition, a simplification, and you're always leaving stuff out. And second, when we study something, we have to draw a line around it. We say this is the system, but that line is something we drew. It's a feature of our description, not reality. And that means our descriptions can never ever be totally objective or complete. So if our knowledge is always incomplete, what do we do? Well, that brings us to our final and maybe most important section, the ethics of knowing. Because all this uncertainty, it has huge consequences for how we should act. Think about it. If we can never have perfect knowledge, then every decision we make based on our models isn't just a technical problem, it's an ethical one. Every time we build a model, we make choices. We choose what to include and what to leave out. We decide what matters. And that choice, that's not an objective scientific fact. It's a value judgment. It's a statement about what we care about. So, what's the takeaway here? How are we supposed to live in a world that's so fundamentally uncertain? This has led to an idea called the provisional imperative. It's basically a guiding principle. It says we have to act with humility. We have to recognize the limits of what we know. It means acting with care, always remembering that our actions are, well, they're provisional, they're experiments, and they're going to have consequences we can't possibly predict. And so that leaves us with this one final, really challenging question to chew on. If our knowledge is always, always incomplete, if we can never fully predict or control the world around us, then what does it actually mean to act responsibly? That's the profound challenge that the science of complexity forces us all to face.